Let me reintroduce you to Chris Maynard. He has worked with computer data for 40 years, with multinational data for 30 years, and with global mission data for 18 years. And for the past 3 years, he has been the registrar of Harvest Information Standards. Would you tell us about that, Chris?
Thank you, Dan. I intend to. And if I've got enough time at the end of this talk, I'm going to introduce the HIS editors to you. So HIS editors, if you're here, be prepared to raise your Zoom hand at the end of this talk. Okay. Harvest Information Standards is a cooperative venture of organizations that share a desire to facilitate the task of taking the gospel of Jesus Christ to all the people of the world. HIS assists mission sending groups by improving data sharing through standardized codes and categories for common data sets. Let me unpack that. We want to get the gospel of Jesus Christ to everyone. It is mission sending groups of all sorts who facilitate that. Hopefully, they're supported by people like you. And people like you use data from databases like Joshua Project. Well, it turns out that databases like Joshua Project use standardized codes and categories. And standardized codes and categories are provided by Harvest Information Standards. So we're right at the bottom of the heap here, which is where we like to be. But the value we provide is felt most here, in the middle, between you and the mission databases. That is what we at HIS are hoping for, working for, and praying for: improved data sharing. But what sort of standardized codes and categories are we talking about? Let's go back to that objective: the gospel for all. What's involved in that? Well, we want to get it to all peoples of all religions. We want to get it by all means, in all places. People with all different languages. That means written languages and spoken languages too. So I hope it won't be a surprise to you to find that at HIS, we work on codes and categories in these areas. So we've got a registry of peoples. We deal with religions. We have dimensions of ministry resources. We have a registry of geography. We have a registry of dialects. And we have a registry of languages. But how do we come up with those standards? In a great measure, that's down to the skill and expertise of our volunteer editors and the generosity of their supporters and the organizations that allow them to do this. But a standard is not a standard unless it's shared by the community. And so we have a process of consultation with the community, which goes something like this. Anyone can propose a standard. Now, to be honest, in practice, that anyone is usually a very deeply experienced expert in a given area of data, but it can be anyone. And then that comes to me, the registrar. And then I propose that to the editors as a group. And then it goes to interested parties, people we call interested parties. These are people who are likely to use our standard or benefit from it. And then it comes back to the editors for final adoption, adopted here as a standard. This is the crucial consultation period. Now, as it happens, we have one consultation period underway at the moment, and more coming up. The Registry of Dialects proposal is already out with interested parties, and hopefully I'll be sending out one about Registry of Peoples this week. This is a time of significant change for us. It's been some years since we had this sort of change. So where do you come in? Well, you can visit our website to learn more, hisregistries.org. Sure, one of the team could type that into the chat now. You could become an interested party. There's no barrier to that. You just email me and I make you an interested party. Or you can help to make us better known. A few links to our website would help what they call search engine optimization, make it easier to find our website. We're not that easy to find at the moment. So any of these three things you could do. Now, I know that his will always be a minority interest among us, but we pray that many who will never know us will nevertheless benefit now and in eternity. So that's it. Harvest Information Standards is a cooperative venture of organizations that share a desire to facilitate the task of taking the gospel of Jesus Christ to all the people of the world. His assists mission sending groups by improving data sharing. And the way we do that is through standardized codes and categories for common data sets. Thank you for your attention. Can I ask any editors who are here to raise their Zoom hand? And see who we've got. So we've got Laura Henneveld, who's looking after religions for us. We got Jim Corson of the IMB, who looks after, oh, I see, we're getting spotlighted as well. Wow. Jim Corson, who looks after the Registry of Peoples, and Joan Spanny, who is looking after the dimensions of ministry resources, and Janelle Nordmo, she's the newcomer among us, taken over from Melinda Lyons, looking after the Registry of Languages. So we still have Alan, who's looking after dialects, and there must be one more. Who am I? Oh, Alan Starling, there you are. You are clapping your hands rather than raising them. That was the confusion. Never mind. Okay, and Lauren Melius. That's right, last but not least, Lauren Melius, Registry of Geography. So these people each have a responsibility for a particular data area, but together we work and decide what's going to happen overall. Thank you very much. We have time for questions, Dan?
I think we do have 3 minutes. I was wondering, how long has this been established and how frequently are these review cycles? You say you're currently reviewing, and I thought, oh, haven't they been well established for a long time? Talk to us about that.
It's back to the 90s, I think, when the precursor of this group started. Joan's looking quizzical. Joan, you know better than I do about this. Say a little bit about the history. And unmute yourself to do so.
This group, I think, started in was it 2001? I think, with a meeting that took place in Virginia, hosted by the training center of the International Mission Board. But prior to that, there was a pseudo standard that was being used that was associated with the ethnologue and a set of codes associated with that called the Ropal codes that do go back to the 90s.
Okay, Dan Scribner has posted in the chat that the precursor was in the mid-1990s with a guy called Ron Rowland of SIL.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think it was called Share Fellowship at one point. The idea was to, originally, I think, to share data, not just to share codes and standards. But it's been refined and focused over the years.
So how could one who doesn't necessarily want to join the review process, but how can we use and most benefit from these registries? Who needs to be looking back at these and being, how do we use this?
You only need to use them if you are managing a database of mission data and you want that database to be shared, integrated, joined, whatever, to other similar databases.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's why it'll always be a minority interest. But if you are concerned about the structure of the information, the definitions and the meaning of data, then you will be concerned because the decisions that we take will affect the meaning and structure of the data going forward. So I would advise you, even if you're not running a database, but if you're concerned about one of these areas and what it means, like people groups, if you're really concerned about what a people group means, and you're prepared to get involved in that, interested in that, then put yourself on the interested parties list by emailing me and ignore emails about other things. We don't send out loads of emails. Ignore emails about other things and pick what you're interested in, interact with that.
Excellent.
You're creating a product that is going to be in somebody else's database, then that's when it's useful as well. So it's in this language. But this language could mean any of 6 different languages. Which one is it? Or is it multiple?
Yep.
And I'd be particularly interested in sort of comparison lists whereby we're attempting to match language names to things when they are in our lists. It's not always simple. It's not one-to-one relationships, but looking at lots of data and going, they don't use our standards. What a shame. It takes a long time of trying to match things up.
I'm going to interject and apologize that we're moving to the next topic. Today is such a key day, and unfortunately, we're just taking that top layer, but come back tomorrow. We're going to try to unpack things more. I apologize.
Dwayne Falk, could you put your question in the chat?
And I'll try and answer it in the chat for you, Dwayne.
Right. Wonderful. A discussion has begun and it'll have to continue later.